Shaul, the rejected king, was being disturbed in his mind by an evil spirit from God. And it was when the evil spirit from God was upon Shaul that David took the harp and played with his hand. So Shaul was refreshed and was well, and the evil spirit departed from him. Of the books called Shemuel, the first, chapter 17. Now the police team gathered together their armies to battle, and they were gathered together at Shochor, which belongeth to Yehudah, and encamped between Shochor and Azekah in Aphesadomim. And Shaul and the men of Israel were gathered together and encamped in the valley of the Elah, and set the battle in array against the police team. And the police team stood on the mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on the mountain on the other side, and there was a valley between them. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the police team, named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. And he had a helmet of copper upon his head, and he was clad with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekalim of copper. And he had greaves of copper upon his legs, and a javelin of copper between his shoulders. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed 600 shekalim of iron, and his shield-bearer went before him. And he stood and cried to the armies of Israel, and said to them, Why are ye come out to set your battle in array? Am not I the Pelishti, and ye servants to Shaul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. If he be able to fight with me and kill me, then will we be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall ye be our servants and serve us. And the Pelishti said, I reproach the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. And when Shaul and all Israel heard those words of the Pelishti, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now David was the son of that Ephrathi of Bethlehem Yehudah, whose name was Yeshai. And he had 8 sons, and the man was an old man in the days of Shaul, advanced in the days of his life among men. And the 3 eldest sons of Yeshai had gone after Shaul to the battle, and the names of his 3 sons that went to the battle were Eliab, the firstborn, and next to him Abinadab, and the third Shammah. And David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Shaul. Now David went to and fro from Shaul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. And the Pelishti drew near morning and evening, and presented himself 40 days. And Yeshai said to David his son, Take now for thy brothers a ephah of this parched grain, and these 10 loaves, and carry them quickly to the camp to thy brothers. And bring these 10 cheeses to the captain of their 1,000, and look how thy brothers fare, and take their pledge. Now Shaul and they, and all the men of Israel, were in the valley of the Elah, fighting with the Pelishtim. And David rose up early in the morning, and left the sheep with a keeper, and took and went, as Yeshai had commanded him. And he came to the place of the wagons, as the host which was going forth to the fight roared for the battle. And Yisrael and the Pelishtim put the battle in array, army against army. And David left his baggage in the hand of the keeper of the baggage, and ran to the army, and came and saluted his brothers. And as he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion, the Pelishti of Gut, Goliath by name, out of the ranks of the Pelishtim, and spoke according to the same words. And David heard them. And all the men of Yisrael, when they saw the man, fled from him, and were very afraid. And the men of Yisrael said, Have ye seen this man that is come up? Surely to reproach Yisrael is he come up. And it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Yisrael. And David spoke to the men that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man that killeth this Pelishti, and taketh away the reproach from Yisrael? For who is this uncircumcised Pelishti, that he should reproach the armies of the living God? And the people answered him after this manner, saying, So shall it be done to the man that killeth him. And Eliab his eldest brother heard when he spoke to the men, and Eliab's anger was kindled against David, and he said, Why art thou come down? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know thy arrogance, and the naughtiness of thy heart, for thou art come down, that thou mightest see the battle. And David said, What have I now done? Is there not a cause? And he turned away from him toward another, and spoke after the same manner, and the people answered him again after the former manner. And when the words were heard which David spoke, they narrated them before Shaul, and he took him. And David said to Shaul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Pelishti. And Shaul said to David, Thou art not able to go against this Pelishti to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. And David said to Shaul, Thy servant was keeping his father's sheep, and when there came a lion or a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock, I went out after him, and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him, and slew him. Thy servant smote both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Pelishti shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. And David said, Yahweh that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Pelishti. And Shaul said to David, Go, and Yahweh shall be with thee. And Shaul clad David with his apparel, and he put a helmet of copper upon his head, and he clad him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his apparel, and he undertook to go, for he had not proved it. And David said to Shaul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off him. And he took his staff in his hand, and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook, and put them in the shepherd's bag which he had, even in his wallet, and his sling was in his hand. And he drew near to the Pelishti. And the Pelishti came on, and drew near to David. And the man that bare the shield went before him. And when the Pelishti looked about, and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth, and ruddy, and withal of a fair countenance. And the Pelishti said to David, Am I a dog, that thou comest to me with staves? And the Pelishti cursed David by his gods. And the Pelishti said to David, Come to me, and I will give thy flesh to the birds of the skies, and to the beasts of the field. Then said David to the Pelishti, Thou comest to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a javelin, but I come to thee in the name of Yahweh of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. This day will Yahweh deliver thee into my hand, and I will smite thee, and take thy head from off thee, and I will give the dead bodies of the host of the Pelishtim this day to the birds of the skies, and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. And that all this assembly may know that Yahweh saveth not with sword and spear, for the battle is Yahweh's, and he will give you into our hand. And it was, when the Pelishti arose, and came and drew near to meet David, that David hastened, and ran toward the army to meet the Pelishti. And David put his hand in his bag, and took thence a stone, and slang it, and smote the Pelishti in his forehead. And the stone sank into his forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Pelishti with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Pelishti, and slew him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. Then David ran, and stood over the Pelishti, and took his sword, and drew it out of the sheath thereof, and slew him, and cut off his head therewith. And when the Pelishtim saw that their champion was dead, they fled. And the men of Israel and of Yehudah arose, and roared, and pursued the Pelishtim, until thou comest to Gaia, and to the gates of Akron. And the wounded of the Pelishtim fell down by the way to Sha'araim, even to Gut, and to Akron. And the children of Israel returned from chasing after the Pelishtim, and they plundered their camp. And David took the head of the Pelishti, and brought it to Jerusalem, but he put his armor in his tent. And when Shaul saw David going forth against the Pelishti, he said to Abner, the captain of the host, Abner, whose son is this youth? And Abner said, As thy soul liveth, O king, I cannot tell. And the king said, Inquire thou whose son the boy is. And as David returned from the slaughter of the Pelishti, Abner took him, and brought him before Shaul, with the head of the Pelishti in his hand. And Shaul said to him, Whose son art thou? thou young man? And Dawid answered, I am the son of thy servant Yeshai, the Baith-Halahmi. And it was, when he had made an end of speaking to Shaul, that the soul of Jehonathan was knit with the soul of Dawid, and Jehonathan loved him as his own soul. And Shaul took him that day, and would let him go no more home to his father's house. Then Jehonathan and Dawid made a covenant, because he loved him as his own soul. And Jehonathan stripped himself of the robe that was upon him, and gave it to Dawid, and his apparel, even to his sword, and to his bow, and to his belt. And Dawid went out whithersoever Shaul sent him, and behaved himself wisely. And Shaul set him over the men of war, and it was good in the sight of all the people, and also in the sight of Shaul's servants. And it was as they came, when Dawid returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, that the women came out of all the cities of Israel, singing and dancing, to meet King Shaul with timbrels, with joy, and with instruments of music. And the women sang one to another as they played, and said, Shaul hath slain his thousands, and Dawid his myriads. And Shaul was very wroth, and this saying displeased him. And he said, They have ascribed to Dawid myriads, and to me they have ascribed but thousands. And what can he have more but the kingdom? And Shaul eyed Dawid from that day and forward. And it was on the morrow that an evil spirit from God came mightily upon Shaul, and he prophesied in the midst of the house. And Dawid played with his hand, as he did day by day. And Shaul had his spear in his hand. And Shaul cast the spear, for he said, I will smite Dawid even to the wall. And Dawid avoided out of his presence twice. And Shaul was afraid of Dawid, because Yahweh was with him, and was departed from Shaul. Therefore Shaul removed him from him, and made him his captain over 1,000. And he went out and came in before the people. And Dawid behaved himself wisely in all his ways, and Yahweh was with him. And when Shaul saw that he behaved himself very wisely, he stood in awe of him. But all Israel and Yehudah loved Dawid, for he went out and came in before them.